Past 18 years, Ravi has worked on the application of machine learning to areas such as API security, deception technologies, NLP algorithms, and video algorithms. Of late, he has been working with text-to-code models, model miniaturization techniques, and applications of sequential decision algorithms. We welcome you. Ravi also has a PhD from the Indian Institute of Science for his thesis on text summarization. He's also a senior member of ACM and has 18 granted patents over 18 peer-reviewed research publications. That deserves a huge applause. Our next guest is Srikar Gulapalli. Srikar is a software engineer working in Advanced Technology Group at ServiceNow. During his tenure of 3 years, he has been actively involved in developing various software applications and machine learning-based products. Currently, Srikar is focused code explainability models and researching on various fine-tuning techniques to further improve the performance of these products.
So today's session, we're going to talk about how GenAI can be applied. So let me just run you through a very quick agenda. And first of all, thank you for the opportunity to be here. It's an honor and a privilege so that I can speak in front of everyone. This is something we've been working on. This is my team. We've been working on GenAI for quite some time, since the day ChatGPT was launched, in a way. Like November 30th was the day, and then things changed in our company totally. So today, what we would do is it projected? Not yet, right? I'm not sure if the demos are going to be very visible. So I'm going to be doing a lot of use cases, running you through a bunch of different use cases, especially for PMs. So I know some people talked about, hey, you know what, are we force-fitting? I think we need to do a lot more research before you can think whether it can be force-fitted or not. But I do agree, there are some scenarios. People who don't understand enough of GenAI, they think, oh, GenAI will solve the problem, but it may not be a GenAI problem. So these are my colleagues who are going to be speaking along with me. So today's agenda is, first is general introduction of GenAI, and we'll spend around 30 minutes on the use cases with some prompts, right? So we'll go into maybe Azure OpenAI, and we'll talk about whether, some of the use cases, scenarios, and then we'll also talk about whether there is an inherent intelligence in GPT or not, or is it just a play of words? And then we're going to talk about some scenarios of what we've been working as a team, and then from ServiceNow, some of the things which have been shipped. So you will see things which are not shipped, which are in the pipeline. I don't think we can show it to you right now. The other thing is, how do you think of use cases, right? So for a PM, so we're going to talk about how to think about use cases. And when you think of a use case, when to use a prompt, when to use prompt engineering. And the other part is, how would you fine-tune a model, right? Or anyone in this room can open up your laptop if you connect to your thing. So that's your last part, right? So we're going to show you how to download a model and then how to do it from scratch. It's about 15-minute session, so anyone can do it. I'm not sure of the network. So the thought was that you will be able to open up your laptop, download a model, and then experiment with like a sentiment or ask a specific question. So that was the thought, but I don't think we have enough network to do it. But if you have a 5G network or a 4G network and you have a laptop, you can connect to it and then just go after us. And then you'd be able to run it on a CPU or a GPU on your machine. And then we'll leave out enough time for Q&A. So where is GenAI right now, right? So if you see GenAI, I know there is a lot of talk for the last 8 months, 10 months. You see that generative AI is right on top, right? Which means it is right on top of the hype curve. But right below it, like following the generative AI, you will see there is a casual AI simulation, AI engineering, data-centric AI, a bunch of things which are following up and trying to climb the hype curve. So it'll take some more time for the generative AI to be mature enough and then fall down. So is it mature enough right now? I don't think the kind of questions which are asked, people will not be asking now. In a matter of 2-3 years, I think more people will be understanding the GenAI a lot more as GenAI matures. So How many people have heard of this music LLM before? Okay, one person. So let's show a demo. It might be a little boring for you. So I'm going to play only one. So this is a generative AI where it can compose music, and I'm going to play only two of them. Right, and then it can do like a piano. Right, it can do a bunch of these things. So a lot of things it can do. You can go and play around with it once you have access to, maybe the Google LLM. So this is from Google, the music LLM. So you can play around with it. The other one is Google Bard. You must have seen it. So the point to be made is it is not just about text. Gen AI is for the images, the videos. You have speech. So I'll play a few things. So one is about this Adobe Firefly. I don't know if you have seen this particular part, where you can actually give a text, and you would be able to generate different images out of it. So get started. I have to sign in, looks like. Right, so here you could go in and type in like try prompt. So wherever it says try prompt, you can click on it. Okay, so you can actually say, cotton overgrown with trees drinking beer, right? Like just weird stuff. And you can adjust some of these portraits, graphic. You can say, some movement, vaporware. And so I'm just showing you examples of what other companies have done with Gen AI, especially in different modes or models, what you call it. So it's generating, and you will see, right? So you have a froth somewhere, some beer, but you can actually play around with it. It actually creates something really, really cool stuff. Just for making, you can do color and tone, you can do composition, a bunch of different things together. Then the other part is around speech. You can do video editing, that you can actually go ahead and do it on your own. And I'm going to play this one. I'll play and let this be there, and I want you to guess who the personality is. Yeah?
And have an identical replica of it. Play leverages the latest generative media techniques to create the highest quality version of your voice.
Anyone? Okay, perfect. I'm going to play one more.
With Play.ht, you can clone your own voice and have an identical replica of it. Play leverages the latest generative media techniques to create the highest quality version of your voice.
You got it? Yeah. Yeah. So it can actually create people, right? Like, so in the future, you'll be able to give your voice signature and then have generative AI speak in its own voice or in your own voice, so that it can answer emails or answer phone calls. So let me go back to this. Do we have time, or we have to close around 4? 4:15. 4:15? Okay. Oh, 4:15. No, don't worry. So in general, right, LLMs are good at so many different things, right? So if you see, these are all the text-related stuff on the left-hand side, or on the right-hand side, or different modalities which it can handle. So it can handle things like summarization. I'm not going to show you anything. It can generate content. I'm not going to show any of that, because most of the people know already, and I'm not going to spend time on things you already know. So things like natural language understanding, agent-like conversation, translation, right? I might show a little bit of translation, but with a little bit of a twist in it. It can do a bunch of other stuff. I don't want to read through it, but the most interesting ones are the ones which you saw on the right-hand side, right? The video, the speech, and images. Let me see. Okay. So how many people have actually played around with the generative AI, the ChatGPT? Most of you, right? Most of you? Okay. So you know how it works. I'm just going to give you a very quick introduction and then tell you what are the places where it doesn't work, and then how to go fix it, and that's what our friend Ravindra will cover. Before I get into the thing, just because I don't want to change screens. So if you look at use the word Barack, don't press enter, and you ask it to generate. it's going to generate something like this, right? Ravindra, please add anything. So it actually finished that word called Bharat, and then it assumed Barakat, right? Because in its own thing, it has got a token called Barak, and then it's something with the at. So that's what it assumed it to be, which is the most frequently occurring word. Now, the next one, you use the word Barak and press enter this time, and then ask it to generate text. It generates an entirely different one, right? So the only difference was in the previous one, you did not press enter, right? No space. But then here, there was a /n, and then the entire meaning changed. Because there, it was trying to complete. It found the first token, Barak, and then it added a 80, right? So here, it just started generating with the /n, and it knows that Barak is a full word. And same thing with the uppercase B. Entire meaning changes, and then it starts producing something entirely different. And here, so there is a hyphen, and then it changed the entire meaning of it. So if you see, just with little bit of a change of what you could do with lowercase, just with a /n, without a /n, what it produces changes entirely, right? And just because of the understanding of the tokens it has. Now we're going to go through and then see some of these things as to how it works, just to give you an intuitive feel for how it is picking up and how can you produce multiple scenarios after it has completed the sentence. We'll show a demo. So what happens here is I'm going to change something called a full spectrum, and let's try something called product leadership forum, yeah? And then I press enter. So if you see, it says the leadership forum is the leading forum, right? And it gave you some color coding. So the reason for this color coding is that if you click on this, it's actually picked up the highly probable ones. So after the leadership, right, if you look at the probability distribution of the next word, it was forum, product, et cetera, right? But then it picked up the 99.56%, which is the highest, and therefore you get a green in color. If you click here, it picked up 0.16, right? And that's why it is red in color. However, I could actually go here and then say forum was the highest one, right? Like if you see this is the forum, I could say, hey, what would it have produced if I had a word called forum here and then say submit? So it'll automatically change the word, right? So there are infinite number of possibilities from each place. So it actually predicts the next word, right? So from here, it predicted held, but then it could have predicted for, it could have predicted designed, right? But it picked up the held at that point in time. Now, if you look at all the possible combinations of all the possible words which could be generated at each point, you will get an infinite number of possibilities which it could generate, right? So that's the beauty of generative AI, but it is also the flip side of generative AI because it is not deterministic. Now, you could also play around with it to say, I want a better deterministic solution. Then you can actually go and change the temperature to 0, and it will pretty much generate exactly the same text every time. So if you want this, you see this? Most of it is greenish in color. There was no red because it was trying to pick up the highest probability word at every point. Now, let's go back to this. Let's do some fun stuff, yeah? So let me do, for example, a poem completion, right? So complete the poem, Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. Now, if you click on it, it just pretty much gave you the poem, which it already knew from its knowledge. Now, we could also do something to the effect of, right? Write the poem in the style of Eminem rapper, right? So if you see, it started writing its own poem in the style of Eminem, right? So that's the beauty here of what it could do. But I also wanted to show you before I get there, since we are at poems, so it'll and it actually mixed whatever was from its knowledge. So if you see, there was a twinkle, twinkle, little star, how I wonder what you are. It actually inserted the word for the next paragraph. It started, developing its own. And that hallucination is a boon as well as a curse. because you would see that it is useful in certain places where you can generate content, you can be more creative about this thing, but it is also not a good thing in certain places. Because I've given the maximum length, it is actually going on. Let me reduce the length to something else. Now, increase this to this. But before here, I wanted to show you something else before I jump in. So I said, hey, you are a songwriter in Telugu. That's the persona I'm giving. And then you can write songs given on a topic given by a user. And I said, can you write a song about Telangana and its food? So it wrote something here. But in between, it understood from its language that it has to write chorus and a verse. So it introduced all that stuff. And then I said, hey, can you translate it into Spanish for me? Okay, so it translated the entire thing into Spanish. And it is a pretty good translation, right? Like if you look at this, it's a pretty good translation word by word. Then in the end, I changed my mind and I said, hey, sorry, I meant English, right? So which means it translated everything in English, right? So you can actually ask for something. So it solves a lot of problem in an enterprise, especially if you're a multi-location enterprise. So you can ask a question in something and it'll answer you in a different language. And I think our friend Shrikar is going to show you a quick demo of that, of what we have done in ServiceNow. Okay, so now we are getting into a new thing here. Okay, I'm going to go from here. So the size changed, so I'm not able to see everything on the screen. That's fine. So let me show you. So this is the same Telangana stuff, right? Where this is another time I tried it. Then let me go to completions. So a lot of people asked, right? We're going to talk about a bunch of different things. So it can understand patterns, right? So this is what I want to do. I want to go one step at a time on what GenAI could do, right? So first we saw completions. It was able to come out with its own content. It can create KB articles, it can create poems, it can create marketing content, etc. You can extrapolate from there. So the next thing I'm going to show you is the pattern recognition, right? So if I say India is New Delhi, and then what is USA? Sometimes it could hallucinate. It gave the right answer, right? So you could actually say, you can do a complex pattern. For example, you could do something like this, right? Where I'm asking a capital and the population and say, for this country, tell me what the answer is. Now it's going to say USA, and it hallucinated, right? So it said it's New York. But if you keep asking, it will sometimes come up with the right answer. So this is the flip side I want to show you, that it is possible that it hallucinates at some point, and you may not know what is the right answer. So if it gives you an answer, it may not always be the right answer. But let's say if I did this and then say something to this effect, okay, again hallucinated. So you can never be sure, even with the temperature, right, that you will get the right answer to that question. Okay, so that is done. Now let's go back to general knowledge. Yeah? So here I said, hey, who was the first Prime Minister of India? And you give it, and then says, oh, Jawaharlal Nehru was the first Prime Minister, which is the right answer. Now I can go in and say, what is the capital of Spain? Things like this. So you don't know whether it is hallucinating or not, but I'm taking it for face value right now. Now we're going to do something different, which is who was the first Prime Minister in India who was a pilot, an author, a lawyer, and is a living person now, right? So we are trying to inject some things into the prompt itself so that we disturb its activation layer when the input goes in, and it's going to come back and say the first Prime Minister was Narendra Modi, who was a pilot, who was an author, who was a lawyer, and is a living person, right? So, so what happens is you've tried injecting certain things in the prompt to make it think in a certain way, right? In fact, the probability starts coming from here, right? It starts building. He can explain it a lot better. The first Prime Minister of India, so your probability distribution starts from there, And then all of a sudden, it starts losing the attention for a pilot, the author, a lawyer, etc. So a lot more attention is given to what it saw first. So even in your prompts, if you want to do certain things, make sure that you put some of the strongest words in the front. He will talk about some of those prompt engineering techniques when we get to his session. Then I don't want to do some of these things, summarization. Now, another example of hallucination, right? I'm trying to force fit something, saying, hey, tell me more about Oracle DB by Microsoft. If you don't know the answer, say, I do not know, right? So in this case, it might actually say, I do not know, okay? Because it knows that Oracle DB and the Microsoft, the distributions don't match, and therefore, it has to say, I don't know. Now, let us take this out. What happened? So let us remove this, and we'll force fit it by not giving this, and then say, hey, tell me about Oracle DB by Microsoft, and it will conveniently say Oracle DB is by Microsoft, and it'll start hallucinating on things. So let's go back to something else. Any interesting ones I have here? Okay, so this is like a classic example where can it actually detect some form of a sentiment, right? Like backstabbed is a sentiment. No journalist will write something called a backstab. So let's see what this actually does, right? It understands synonyms. So if you see, it will talk about OpenAI, what OpenAI has done to Microsoft, and it has automatically explained a bunch of different things over here. And these are the places where it thinks it could have backstabbed Microsoft. Interesting tool, but you have to play with it with care. I don't want to run through this. Okay, so this is another interesting one which might be useful for a lot of your corporates. So if you want to produce a summary, for example, this is a system message. So you're an expert in creating surveys, and right? I'm giving it, so this is almost like the chain of thought, right? You're saying step 1, do this, step 2, do this, step 3, do this. Then I come here, what happened here? Okay, let me clear chat using a previous one. Now you're saying I'm a customer service agent for exhaust fans, and I need to send out feedback from the customer about the lost call and the service provided. Could you generate a survey for me? Okay, so sorry, my screen is changed after we projected it, so I have to play around with it. It's in big fonts. So this is like identify step 1, identify the purpose of the survey, and it has asked survey questions, right? So how would you rate the overall experience? Was your issue resolved? How long did it take for the customer? So it can pretty much write certain things for you automatically if you can give the right prompt at any time. So are we force fitting this? I don't think so. It is very good at text, and if you play with text, you have to play with the right LLM, with the right prompt for the right thing it was meant to do. Otherwise, you're going to be force fitting things. Okay, so should we try and do a long document Q&A? Let me try. So this is nothing but I have a 70-page document, right? And you ask a question, and it actually finds the perfect answer, right? And you cannot do it with anything else. You have to use GPT-4. If you try it on GPT 3.5, it'll fail because it's got a 4,000 token size limit. So I'm not going to demo that for you in the interest of time. You can also create tutorials, right? So you say, create a GenAI tutorial for me. It'll create a GenAI tutorial for you. Now I'm going to show you something around mathematics. So how many people have done like function inverse, function composition, etc., right? So I'm going to take this function. So given a function f of x equals blah, find g of f of x, and then f of g of x, right? Let me go back to completions. I think that would be better. I can see everything together. Right? So it gave you the right answer. You can calculate it, it's pretty much right. Yeah? So now you can actually, so people actually say, oh, it is text. GenAI cannot do mathematics. My point is that yes, it can. If it knows, if it has in its knowledge, it can. So even here, it produced the right thing, right? So it's very simple functions, x squared and 1 minus x squared. It did f of g of x and then g of f of x. Let me go in and ask it to do a, so something which is not, Collat's conjecture. So basically in the infinite series of numbers, you take any number, and then if it is even, you divide by 2. If it is odd, you do a 3n plus 1, and at the end of it, it converges to 1, right? But at this point in time, there is no proof which exists for this, but we know that it always converges. People have proved it for n number of numbers, but we don't know the proof for it. So here what we're saying is, hey, prove this Collat's conjecture, right? So we're trying to create new knowledge which doesn't exist, right? So in this case, it will actually fail. It is an unsolved mathematical problem, right? I basically tell you the same thing. Unfortunately, it is impossible to prove, but no one has proved it yet, not even humans. But humans have proved it, and then if it had some knowledge, it can actually do it. But it can write the proof for something which already we know of, right? For example, hey, prove there is an infinite number of primes in the world, and it can automatically calculate because it has it in its knowledge. Then let me show you some things on the songwriter we have seen. Okay, so a lot of people say, oh, it's bad at mathematics. So I'm going to show you some computer science problem. It's a graph problem. You must have heard of the shortest path algorithms, right? So we're going to take a shortest path algorithm, encode it in such a way that the OpenAI understands and gives you the right answer, right? And to make sure that it is not actually saying it from its own knowledge, we're going to twist the facts a little bit. So we're going to go different set of facts. Let me show you here. So here, we are saying that, hey, Mumbai to Bangalore, so all these are different nodes, which is Mumbai, Delhi, Kolkata. Then we are defining the edges, like what we do in computer science. Mumbai to Bengaluru is 562 kilometers, which is not true, wrong facts. Then we give a bunch of different cities, and then the distance between those cities. It's like a classic shortest path computer science problem. It's called Dijkstra's algorithm. Now, in the end, users will ask you questions, and now here we say, hey, give me all possible routes from Mumbai to Delhi with the total distance, and what is the shortest route, okay? Let it calculate. So we gave really wrong answers so that it doesn't pick up from its knowledge, right? So we are overriding it. Sorry, I think it understood, it is still doing the survey part, so we haven't saved the changes. So give me a minute, we will redo it. Okay. Okay, now we're going to run this. Where is the session? So it did the algorithm and then said 1849. It gave multiple routes and then said the shortest one is 1849 kilometers, which is absolutely right. I'm going to show two more, and then we will hand it over to this one. Okay. So we'll go here. Sorry, this is a little painful to. Okay, so we'll do, we did math, we did computer science, we'll do an intelligence part, right? So what we're trying to prove here is that, let me go back to completions, slightly easier, I guess. So we're going to test out its intelligence, yeah? And this is GPT-3 and not GPT-4. We'll go here, and then in the intelligence, we're going to say, hey, what is the sentiment of the following sentence? Here it is positive, here it is negative, and then you say, what is the sentiment of the following sentence? It's intelligent, it has to find the sentiment from this, and then said positive. Now, what if we actually reversed it, right? So we gave this as negative, and this is positive. What does it do? right? So if you say generate, it still says positive, right? It didn't make a mistake. Now we're going to do something different. So we're going to call this AAA, right? And then we're going to call this BBB, and then maybe remove these guys. Okay? And then say, hey, oh, sorry, I should have removed this. And then say, give me the sentiment. So it still gave positive, okay? Now, what am I going to do? I'm going to say, call this as class, call this as class, and okay, now it gave out CCC. But then it actually thought it was the sequence, right? So it thought it was a sequence. Now what we're going to do, we're going to do a different thing, which is take this out and go back in. And in the interest of time, I'm just going to run it very fast. Okay, so here, I'm doing the same thing, but then I played around with the last part a little bit. And now it gave AAA, okay? It's just to do with the way I wrote the prompt here, right? This last sentence. So this made the entire difference. So how you write the prompt is going to be super important, right? And that's what Ravindra will cover. But last one, because you're all product managers, I'm going to do a slightly different one. It might take a little bit time because this has changed the entire resolution of the screen. I'm so sorry, this is like very weird. Okay, since you're all product managers, I'm going to show you how a product manager is going to do certain things. So you're an awesome product manager who has shipped multiple successful products. Okay, now what we're going to do is here, let's clear the chat, and this is going to be very useful for you as product managers. So you can say, can you write a few epics to create a second-hand car application? So for people who are from ADP, and this is one of my favorite questions, interview questions, where users can upload pictures of what they want to sell, and buyers can choose and interact. And let's use GPT 3.4, and let's play. Oh, it didn't change this for some reason. Sorry, it's something else is happening. It's not saving it or what? Yeah. I want to show you, you as product managers, how easy is it going to change your job. So let me just say, it is still doing that. Let it complete, and then I'll show you. Okay, so you're going to write epics for a second-hand car application. So the persona it's playing is an awesome product manager. So if you see, it has wrote down all the epics. Epic 1. It also wrote the sign up, login, forgot password, everything for user authentication, and this account manager. Then the story 2.1 is the second one is car listing management. Okay. And then it started create car listing, delete car listing, view car listing, car browsing, etc., and then it wrote everything. Okay, now I can say, can you write, so though it gave me, okay, so can you write stories, more few stories in detail, yeah, for the first epic. So if you see, it's going to write, the user authentication was the first one, right? So it started writing sign up, and then it started writing an acceptance criteria, right? So you as product managers, if you have something in mind, you can pretty much write it. It's a login for the second story, the acceptance criteria, and So I hope everyone is a product manager here, right? Yes? Okay. Now you can also do a bunch of different things like forgot password, etc., etc. You can ask it to write the acceptance criteria for the first story in detail. Okay. For the first, no, it didn't pick up the right one. Okay. Okay. So for the first sign up, it actually wrote all the acceptance criteria, required fields, password confirmation, validation, everything. Okay. Now, in the next one, I don't want to show you, but I can actually show you prompts for architects, QE, dev, everything. So he will show you for a dev at some point, and then walk you through some of the things we have done. So what I'm going to do is now hand over to, so you saw some of the use cases with prompt. We also saw, was it intelligent? I will leave it to you to figure it out, because I showed you where it went wrong and then where it was super intelligent. It all was depending on the prompt. It is totally up to you to decide. So at ServiceNow, we have done certain things, build our own LLM. Sometimes we use OpenAI, but mostly we're trying to build our own LLMs. And we, our thing is slightly different, right? It's basically for a workflow. It's a service management company. We handle service management for IT, HR, CSM, etc. So we handle how LLMs can increase the productivity of an end user, increase the productivity of an agent or a worker, and for the BU developers, right? So that's what we're going to do. And I'm going to invite Shrikar to actually give you a very quick demo of what ServiceNow has shipped so far in these areas, right? How do you increase productivity of people?
Yeah, so while Shrikar is setting up his laptop for the demos, I have a bunch of questions for you. You can answer by a raise of hands. So how many of you are working as product managers for enterprise software companies? Okay, and the rest of you are working as product managers for end customers? Or what would you classify yourself as? You can speak up. Entrepreneur? Okay. Okay, so the reason why I'm asking these questions is, I want to get back to what Jeba showed at the beginning, right? So he showed the word Barak and how it completed. So one of the key aspects of these large language models is the notion of probability, right? So anything which is probabilistic is non-deterministic. So a lot of our enterprise software, at least the legacy software, are built around the notion of being deterministic. So if I go to, let's say, the search page and I ask for something, I expect that same document to come back to me every time I search for those words, right? Imagine a language model which will give you completely different answers every time you go and search. So what happens to the end user experience? So that's one of the key aspects that one needs to consider when you're using generative AI in your product definitions. So the second question, So the second question which I have is, how many of you are under pressure to use generative AI in your product roadmap? Raise of hands.
So management actually tells you to use generative AI.
Okay. So how confident are you? Like, are you really confident that generative AI will, you will be able to roll out a successful generative AI problem statement for your customers at scale? Or do you think, there are some things that you need to do and you push back on the engineering to figure those things out? Are you scared? Are you uncertain how these problem statements pan out in the real world? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. Yeah, so this is one of the key aspects from a product design and management point of view, to understand what these algorithms do behind the scenes. You don't need to code. You can let the engineering teams figure those things out. But while you sign up to roll out some of these features, probably you should pay attention to the notion of probability, the uncertainty which is out there, and how you can kind of find alternatives to solve some of these problems, right? Sometimes we use the term guardrails. So guardrails are basically a fancy way to say that you're going to force the output of these algorithms into a particular fashion so that it at least looks realistic to customers or deterministic, right? So Shrikar is going to show you a couple of use cases that we will be rolling out to customers in a big way. So they're already controlled go-to-market use cases. There's a lot of engineering which has gone behind the scenes in order to make these happen. And once he's done, I'll go into a little bit of theoretical aspects around prompts and maybe show you a very simple Python notebook to introduce you to what the developers feel or what the developers do when you ask them to solve some of these generative AI problems. Okay, Shrikar.
Yeah, thanks, Ravindra. So, yeah, we'll take a look at how ServiceNow has approached and the kind of problems ServiceNow has solved. So the area we will focus on today is incident management. So let's say Alex is an IT agent. Now he starts by looking at what are the incidents that are assigned to him. Now what is an incident? It's in PM's language, it's a ticket. So it's something we raise. Let's say my laptop is not working. I raise a ticket to my IT team. But what happens behind the scenes? So that is what ServiceNow solves. That is IT service management which we ship. So let's say the first, I have a bunch of incidents assigned to me, I'll open an incident. Now, so this incident was, somebody else was working on this, Alan was working on this. It was assigned to me right now, to Alex Ray, and I have no details about what happened on this incident. Ideally, the flow is I'll have to go through pages and pages of the activity that happened on the incident. But is it more productive? No. That's where ServiceNow shipped a summarize capability, which is totally powered by GenAI. So Alex can click on summarize to get a holistic view of what happened on this incident. So this incident, I'll just read it out. So it's an issue with MacBook, it's frozen, cursor doesn't move. And Alan has suggested something, and now Alex wants to know what happened with this. So let's look at the summary. The summary is the user reported that their MacBook is frozen, accurate. And the actions taken were, we asked the customer to force quit all the applications and ask the customer to restart their Mac. And the incident is still open, which means both of these steps didn't solve the incident yet. Now what can Alex do now? He can take a look at some of the resolved incidents that were very similar to this particular incident. So let's look at one of them. Even these are recommendations which are powered by, again, not powered by GenAI, but something out of the box shipped by ServiceNow. So let's take a look at a resolved incident that is already, So somebody else has worked on it, very similar. MacBook is frozen, cursor moves, but the applications don't respond. Now again, I want to look at what happened in this incident and how did they resolve. So I can again click on summarize. So now we see that, again, it's MacBook is frozen, but the actions taken were the PRAM has been reset. So this could be one of the resolution steps which I could propose for my actual incident. So I could just simply copy paste from here and modify some of this, of course, but suggest this as a resolution to the customer. Yeah, so I'll just perform a PRAM, post comments, and hopefully this will help the customer with their issue. Now, Alex, so this is one part where we have shipped a generative AI solution, and it's all the LLM which we're using behind the scenes is a Now LLM, which is powered by Now Assist, everything created in-house by ServiceNow. So it's not an external Azure OpenAI or OpenAI. It's a LLM built by ServiceNow for summarization. Now, Alex looks at the different incidents that are assigned to him today, and he realizes that there are a lot of issues that are related to Mac frozen. And he finds it fit to create a knowledge article so that it helps other agents to figure out how to solve this particular issue. So what can Alex do now? He can simply open knowledge articles and just add we have a option to generate a KB article. So I'll just, let's say, steps to resolve Mac freezing issue. And headings are, so the headings will be the subheadings which you'll see. So I want to suggest force quitting the applications. and PRAM reset, and let's say disk utility to check if there's any hardware issues. And let's generate the KB. Now what is happening behind the scenes now is we are invoking Azure OpenAI, the completions API, to generate a KB article for us from its knowledge to on the topic, how do I resolve MAC phrasing issue with these headings. Yeah. So if you look at the content, we have steps to resolve MAC phrasing issue, steps to how do I force quit applications, how do I PRAM reset, and how do we ensure there's no issue in the hard disk, which is by launching disk utility. So I'm good with this KB article. I can just click on save, and that is done. So with a click of button, we were able to generate content, and this will help agents improve productivity because now there's a knowledge base. People can go and look at how do I resolve an incident. But is that all? No. How will this help customers? So let's say I'm Charlie. I'm a customer, and my Mac is not working. So I have a virtual agent for me. Let me type in my request. I say my Mac is freezing. Now what is happening behind the scenes is, again, ServiceNow has shipped a capability where we search through the entire knowledge base. For a given query, we try to extract relevant knowledge articles and then pinpoint to the exact answer for this given query. So yeah, so if you see it was able to pick up the article which we just created, which is, I'll just open this. So you have to force quit, you have to PRAM reset, and you have a disk utility, and all of this, we have steps for all of this. Now, user can try some of this, and this will help us deflect incidents. Maybe this will just help the customer, and there are no more incidents. So incident deflection happens here. Now, is this just for incidents? No. So customers could also search for policies. For example, there's HR policy about my sick leaves. So I want to know how many sick leaves am I entitled to in a year. I can just ask my virtual agent. It takes time. Yeah. So if you see, it clearly says, based on a given KB article, you are entitled to 10 days of paid sick leave. But if you look at the actual KB article, it's actually a leave policy for the company containing sick leaves, paternal leaves, and all of them. But it was able to pinpoint and extract just the information about sick leave. So this is the article it extracted from. It has even the process of how do I request for leave, but it was able to extract the information I want and show it, display it to the customer. So again, this is another way where we could deflect tickets. We don't even need tickets anymore. If we have our knowledge base sorted, customers will get answers via VA.
Yeah, and this is the reason why I did not show the 70-page document and then extracting answers from it, because it was the same scenario.
Now this will also help agents. So let's say an agent doesn't know how to reset PRAM. So the entire search experience is present across. So he could just search for PRAM reset.